All right, let's just jump right in. We are in the middle of this massive shift, right? The era of AI. And look, this isn't some sci-fi movie stuff anymore. It's here, it's now, and it's totally changing the game for what it means to have a valuable skill. So, the real question is, how do we not just survive, but actually come out on top in this new world? That's what we're going to figure out.
And this quote, man, it just cuts right to the chase. This is the raw economic reality of what we're up against. It's not a question of if AI is going to be cheaper and more efficient, it's just by how much. We're not talking about a little tweak to the system here. No, this is a complete rewrite of the rules of work. And this massive disruption, it really shines a spotlight on a huge, huge problem. We've got AI moving at light speed, reshaping our entire world, but the way we're actually preparing our kids for that future, well, it's kind of stuck in the past. We're looking at this giant gap between the skills the future demands and what our schools are actually teaching. And this right here, this is the fundamental conflict we have to tackle, like yesterday. We know, it's not a guess, we know that AI is going to take over a lot of jobs. They're just going to vanish. And yet our education system is basically running on the same old software. We're teaching kids for a world that's disappearing right before our eyes. And that, well, that just doesn't add up, does it?
So, what's the move? Where do we go from here? Well, it all starts with a completely different way of looking at the problem. We have to stop trying to beat AI at its own game. I mean, trying to outcalculate a supercomputer, that's a losing battle every single time. The real strategy, the winning strategy, is to lean into what makes us, well, us, to double down on being human. And that brings us to this really important idea, AI thinking. You can think of it like the new must-have skill for our time, and it's not about being some coding genius, not at all. It's about getting smart strategically about this new world. It's knowing what machines are good at, what we're good at, and this is the key, how to make those two things work together.
So this whole AI thinking thing, it really boils down to three main parts. First, you've got to have a basic sense of how AI actually works. The difference between an old school program just following rules and a modern AI that actually learns from data. Second, and this is so important, you need to be able to tell the difference between what a human can do and what a machine can do. And third, you have to learn how to collaborate with AI, to use it as a tool, not fight it as a rival.
Okay, to really get a sense of how different our abilities are, let's look at this incredible story from biology. For literally decades, one of the biggest, most complicated puzzles in science was figuring out the shape of proteins. The tiny little machines that make life happen. Mapping them out is absolutely essential for creating new medicines and so much more.
So, what kind of scale are we talking about here? Well, scientists figure there are about 200 million known proteins. Just let that number sink in. 200 million. Each one a unique, insanely complex little puzzle that we needed to solve.
All right, so after decades of effort, with some of the smartest people on the planet dedicating their entire careers to this, how much progress did we make? We mapped less than 1%. And that's not because they weren't brilliant. It just shows you how monstrously difficult this problem was for our human brains to tackle.
And then this AI called AlphaFold showed up, and in just 2 years, it basically mapped all of them, nearly all 200 million. What took us decades to barely even start, an AI finished. This isn't just a small step forward, folks. This is a quantum leap. It's a whole different ball.
The lesson here is so clear. It's this simple. Once a machine can do something, just let the machine do it, period. Our job is not to try and keep up with AlphaFold. Our job is to let it do its thing and focus our energy on the stuff that's left, the purely human part.
So what is that human part? This is where we get to the playbook for the future. It's all about building a skill that AI, with all its incredible power, just can't touch. Real, honest-to-God, from-nothing innovation. Here's the way to think about it. AI is amazing at going from version 1 to version 1.01, all the way to version 100. It can optimize, it can tweak, it can perfect something that already exists. But that first spark, that leap from nothing to 1, creating something completely new out of thin air, that's our territory. That is the human superpower. But how do you learn to be innovative? You might think it's just this magical thing you're born with, right? You're either Steve Jobs or you're not. Well, it turns out that's totally a myth. There's actually a system for it, developed at Stanford, called design thinking. And it basically takes innovation and turns it from some mysterious art into a skill, a process that anyone can learn. And it's this awesome 5-step process. It kicks off with empathy, really understanding people, not just what they say they want, but what they actually need and feel. Then you define the real problem you're trying to solve. After that, you ideate. You just brainstorm like crazy, no bad ideas allowed. Then you build a quick and dirty prototype to make your idea tangible. And finally, you test it with real people, get their feedback, and start the loop all over again. It's genius.
Okay, that's the theory, but let's see how this thing actually plays out in the real world. This story about a Stanford class is just the perfect example of why design thinking, especially those first few steps, is such a game changer.
So, the assignment seemed pretty clear-cut. A team of students was given this great project: design a cheap baby incubator for rural villages in Nepal. The assumption was, hey, the ones they have must be too expensive.
But they didn't just start sketching designs in a classroom. They did step 1, empathize. They flew to Nepal to see for themselves. And what they found there just blew their whole project apart. The hospitals did have incubators, really expensive, fancy ones, and they were just sitting in the corner collecting dust totally unused. And right then, they had that aha moment. They were solving the completely wrong problem. The issue wasn't the cost of incubators in hospitals. The real problem was that babies born in tiny, remote villages couldn't even survive the trip to the hospital. They had to throw out their old idea and redefine the entire problem from scratch. And by actually talking to the families, to the farmers, they heard what they really needed. Someone said, we need them here, in our homes. We need cheap ones. And that was it. That was the spark. The real solution wasn't a better hospital incubator. It was this simple, portable, low-cost thing that was kind of like a tiny sleeping bag. And it worked. It saved countless lives, all because they listened first and solved the right problem.
And that story just brings everything together, doesn't it? The future isn't about us versus the machines. It's about taking our uniquely human skills, that empathy, that creativity we just saw, and pairing them with the incredible power of AI. It's about shifting our whole mindset from being scared of AI to collaborating with it.
You know, Professor Jiang at Stanford really nailed this new way of thinking. When he saw his students were all using ChatGPT for their essays, he didn't ban it. He did the opposite. He told them, I'm not asking you not to use it, I'm asking you to use it. See, the point isn't to run from these tools, it's to master them. You can't stop a tidal wave, right? So you might as well learn how to surf. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to this. The AI, it's getting better and better at the how. How to analyze the data, how to optimize the process, how to write the code. And that leaves us with a really big, really important question, not just for our schools, but for all of us. Are we teaching our kids, and are we teaching ourselves, the why, the empathy, the creativity, the critical thinking to figure out which problems are even worth solving in the first place?